Greetings viewers, Ericthecarguy here. I'm working in my home garage right now because I'm currently in between shops. And one of the things that I've been doing is doing some upgrades on some of my vehicles. And in particular, today I would like to do an upgrade on my wife's 2012 Honda Odyssey. In particular, what I'd like to do is, well, I recently installed a stereo system in my 2003 Honda Pilot that has Apple CarPlay. I really like that. I just get in, it wirelessly connects, well, for the most part it wirelessly connects, and I'm able to enjoy music and have navigation on a nice little screen right there in the dash. This van already has navigation, and it already has a screen on the dash, and it already has kind of, well, a decent stereo with a CD player and everything in it. And I don't necessarily want to get rid of that, but I do want to add Apple CarPlay. Right here is the product I'm going to install. Now this basically piggybacks into the auxiliary circuit on the existing stereo, and you'll be able to use Apple CarPlay and use the existing navigation screen. So this is one of those products that's available out there. I'll link this down in the description, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to install it and maybe a little setup on it as well. Let's get started. Job one for me is going to be to get this glove box out, and you may have already noticed that I removed this lower trim piece. So getting the glove box out of the way so that we can get access to the stuff behind it is kind of what we want to do. Okay. First thing I had to do was disconnect the damper, which is this guy. So that just unhooks back in here. But then the whole glove box assembly can pop right up off of there, so you don't need any tools or anything to get this far. Now we need to get some trim pieces off of here. I'm going to start with this one over here underneath the shifter. And you can see it just pries out of there. Here's a tip before you go taking apart plastic trim panels and everything, and it's cold outside like it is now. It's like January, so it's cold. So before you go to try to remove interior trim pieces when it's cold outside, start the vehicle up, let it run for a while, turn the heat on, make sure everything's nice and warmed up before you start pulling apart plastic parts, because they get brittle when they're cold. You warm them up, you have less chance of breaking them. You're welcome. I removed this outer trim piece just because it was easier to get to this. Trickiest part of this piece was this top part, because it was wedged up in here, and I also pulled away the door trim in order to gain access to it. Now, let's get this out. I don't remember if this lower piece needs to come off or not. I don't think it does, but we've got 4 fasteners. Here, over here, up there. So we can remove this assembly, and they're 8mm. To get the shifter out of your way, put on the parking brake, and then you can push down on, there's this little black thing here, and it's gonna yell at you for doing that if you didn't disconnect the battery, but it'll make it easier to access this fastener. Eric, why didn't you disconnect the battery? Well, that's not a bad idea. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I guess I'm lazy. And I know as soon as I unplug the radio, I might as well be unplugging the battery, so the reason, lazy. So let's get this trim piece out. There it is. Some electrical stuff to disconnect. 3 electrical connections. Get that guy out. And there's a little plastic tab on the back you need to push down in order to disconnect these. All right, now let's see if we can have it. There we go. So there's a couple of clips under here that need to you sort of push back, because this kind of should have come off, but I didn't do it. One of the plastic clips got a little wild on me. Now we have the business, and I've got this lower tray open here, and this will expose all these wonderful connectors on the back of the radio, which is next. Here's what comes in the VLine kit: installation manual, user guide, cool little keyboard, USB extension. They have these harnesses specific for vehicles, and you can install this in a number of vehicles, not just an Odyssey. Anyhow, this is for my cameras. I've also got a satellite antenna that we have to run. Here's one of the harnesses we need to tie in. The second harness we need to tie in. We need to install a microphone. Here's some brackets, and looks like a way to tee into something. And here is the actual VLine deal. This is what everything will eventually plug into. So this is the business. First, 2 harnesses that we're going to just tie into things here. Let's start with a big one. It's like this one. white connector right here. I find a pocket screwdriver helps to, with these connections, to push down the tab. That can be difficult to access. There we are. So really, you're just tying in. So make sure you're connected there. Connected here. That reverse signal wire, which is going to be over there somewhere. Then there's this little green connector. Second harness. Okay, these two have to go back this way behind the glove box, because that's where we're going to locate our new unit back here. Probably would be helpful to put some kind of padding underneath this to keep you from scratching any interior components. Now that all this is connected, I'm going to flip it back over. I've got everything just about installed, but before I put it all back together, I want to plug everything in and check it. So this is the main unit here. It also has an HDMI in, so I'm going to actually run an HDMI to this so that I can plug my phone directly into it, and if I want to, watch movies on the screen. Now, I'm not going to do this while I'm driving down the road, only when I'm sitting waiting in a parking lot or something like that. There are plugs here and here. It should be pretty self-explanatory what goes where. And there's also the GPS antenna, the camera connection. So yeah, there's GPS, the touch screen, backup camera, and that I'm wagering is the microphone. So you're going to need this harness. And here's a USB extension, which I'm just going to leave over here for now. And this is the microphone. So that is also going to go up there. I see. So this connector is 2, so it can plug in by itself or by this guy, which is what I'm going to need, because there's another connector down here for that GPS. Everything's plugged in. Let's see what works. Okay, USB aux. There we go. Wasn't all the way plugged in. This is not liking this. It's actually been a couple of days because I've been having some issues, which I will go over now. Now, you probably noticed when I first tried to fire this thing up, the radio was acting all weird and things just weren't happening. The reason for that was the battery. The battery on this vehicle was totally done. It would go from 12 volts and then suddenly drop down to 7 volts. And then I charge it and it'd be at 12 volts for like a minute and then it would drop off again. So I tested it. It was bad. Went and got myself a new battery. I'm also having difficulty. I was just trying to check the HDMI connection on the back with my phone, and I was unable to do that. So, well, I was able to do it, but it only does audio. It won't do video, and that's probably because of a safety thing built into the unit. Even though I have the parking brake and everything on, there's no input to this that I know of that says the parking brake is on and it's okay to display the video for something. But I've got this to function. I did a text, I did a phone call, I did Apple CarPlay, all of that stuff works, and that's what I wanted. In order for the Apple CarPlay or Android to work, you need to make your phone a hotspot, a Wi-Fi hotspot, because the GROM or the VL2 needs to be able to connect to Wi-Fi. So it does that through your phone. They give you this keyboard to input the password into the system so that this can connect to your phone. Well, I can't get this thing to work no matter how much I try. There's an on-off switch. I've turned it on, made sure it's on, the little lights on there, and I keep pushing this. But no matter what I push on this, it doesn't work. So I didn't find this to be very helpful, at least in my experience. But well, I've believed I'm going to learn all there is to learn here. And I'm going to install the microphone. I'm going to put the microphone up in here. I'm also going to do the satellite over there on the top of the dash, and we'll get everything buttoned up and inside. Well, here's something funny. There's this little piece of plastic that sits down in there behind that little window here that I wanted to remove so I could run the satellite thing up through here, this guy. And I think it's just, all I'll have to do is just run it up through here and loop the wire around the front of that speaker and probably glue it right to the windshield. But this piece of plastic just pops out, and as you might have seen, it shot across the room. Beware of flying plastic parts. I want to run the microphone up through this A-pillar trim and have it exit like right here. It seems to be a good spot. And I want to make sure I get under the airbag because there's a curtain airbag in here that's going to deploy. So I want to make sure that I'm away from that. I believe the way you get this A-pillar trim off is you got to pop this center part out that says side curtain airbag first in order to pull this free. And then I'm also going to pull the weather strip down as I did on the other side to utilize that channel there. And I'll probably also pop this piece of plastic off on this side so I can run the wire down underneath there. In fact, I may not even have, I don't even have to pop this trim off. So I can run the wire right up through here, right up around there. I don't even have to remove the trim. Here's my final answer for the install. Ran the microphone wire up under the dash and everything up over stuff. Make sure it doesn't obstruct with anything. I just went up over wiring harnesses and all that stuff up underneath there. And I pulled the stereo out, went through here, came up through here, and eventually plugged into the unit there. Had just enough wire to do so. This seems to be pretty secure here. I put a zip tie around it, and you may be able to see that. But it doesn't seem to be moving, and it looks totally out of the way. Also, I can access all of these ports here. So the USB port, if I wanted to go in and do some HDMI stuff, I could. But I'm taking the USB extension, and I'm just going to land that in the glove box. So it's going to be very similar to what's already here. At this point, it's just a matter of putting it all back together. I also tidied up all the wires and everything. And I left myself enough wire leads to where I could pull the stereo out. So if you put the stereo in and you tie everything down, you may not have enough lead if you ever need to come back and service the back of the stereo for any reason. So I purposely left a little bit extra over there so that I could get the stereo assembly out like this if I wanted to. Ooh, and probably not a bad idea. This is the cabin air filter. Might as well just check it while you're here. I mean, if you're this far, and you know, it's probably not a bad idea just to check the ability to get this out of here, because you're going to have to service this. This is a serviceable part. And honestly, I should probably grab a new one of these. Now, there will be a little bit of a trick to getting this back in, because really you should remove this other trim piece down below here. So there's a couple of plastic clips down on this lower piece of plastic that need to go into these two openings. So you kind of need to like drop it in, or I can just pop these 4 screws out and make my life a lot easier. 2, 3, and give me just enough. There it is. So yeah, that helped. And just for good measure, before I tighten everything down, just want to make sure it still works. Yep. Regular backup camera still works. Now, I'll just put it back together. So the long ones, there's long and short. The long ones go up top, short ones go on the bottom. Why not, right? Since it's no longer needed, I took the phone mount off. I'll plug everything back in, don't forget that part. Now that everything is all back together and hooked up, I'm going to spend some time with this system, see how it works, find out what is good about it, what isn't so good about it, and I'll report those findings back to you before the end of this video. Welcome back, viewers. It has been about a year since you saw the last clip, and a lot has happened since then. I will first go on record as saying that after initially installing the system and updating the system, I had a heck of a time, or I should say my wife had a heck of a time, getting her phone to connect to the system so that she could use it. In fact, she would sit in the garage, I would hear her do this. She would start the van and it wouldn't connect, so she'd turn the van off and start it up again, trying to get it to connect. And she might do this 2 or 3 times before she left the garage. So there was a lot of difficulty getting her phone to communicate with the VLine system initially. All of these things have been resolved with the latest software update, and that update could have come out, well, a long time ago, but I recently went through, updated the system. My wife also used to have an iPhone XR. I upgraded that to an iPhone 14 around the same time I did the updates here. Once I did those updates and upgraded her phone, she gets in the van and the system works flawlessly. Every time she gets in, she starts it up, it automatically connects to CarPlay, she gets in, she drives off and is able to work the system. What's kind of cool about this system is the way it's integrated. You're able to use the Honda interface in order to navigate everything, so it's not a touchscreen, it just uses the Honda interface. Granted, before the update, that was glitchy and it wasn't working really well. Also, I had some trouble with that little keyboard that I talked about. The keyboard, now that I've done the update, everything on the keyboard seems to work now. I've even got that little red light that you can probably see. So this is what I recommend you do if you get one of these systems. And honestly, I do recommend it because it is pretty cool. It takes an older vehicle like this with an older navigation system and everything and updates it so that you got CarPlay and everything wirelessly at that. It's freaking cool. That said, it wasn't without its issues, and those issues, I suspect, were all caused by that lack of software update that I had. So what I recommend that you do as soon as you get the system installed is you hook it up to your home Wi-Fi, and this is what I did. Hook it up to your home Wi-Fi, download any updates or firmware updates or anything that are necessary, and then try to use the system. I wager you'll have a lot better luck doing it that way. And for me, since I did do it that way, everything has, again, worked flawlessly. These systems are available for more than just Honda Odyssey, so if you have like an older German vehicle or something like that, that perhaps has a navigation screen on it, but doesn't have Apple CarPlay, you can adapt it using this system. I have an update regarding the HDMI setup on the VLine 2 system since the update. There are two HDMI ports on the back of the VLine system. There's the outer one, which is the HDMI in, and there's also the inner one, which is the HDMI out. And that is used for mirroring what goes to the screen. So whatever the VLine is putting out as far as its interface, there you can double it. You can put it to another screen someplace else. So you can have two screens displaying the same thing using that HDMI out. As far as the HDMI in is concerned, I plugged my Xbox in just as an experiment to see if I could get it to work. I could hear the sound, but I couldn't see any images on the screen. And my experiences in the past with running video into a system like this, into a car, many times there's an input for, say, a parking brake or something that basically says that the vehicle is not moving. I think maybe the GPS might cover it in this. I'm not really sure. Anyhow, I could get the sound to come out the speakers, but I couldn't get the video to come up. And as I said, normally in the past, there's like some kind of input that says the vehicle's stationary, it's okay to display the video. I didn't see any of that here. I'm going to leave that to you to figure out. But again, after the updates, everything seemed to work way better. So I'll leave you to figure out how to get your HDMI to work out for whatever you want to do. This is my wife's van. I'm never going to use the HDMI inputs on it, but I wanted to share that information with you. This system seems very capable and very expandable to do a lot of things. So what I recommend you do is I recommend you go down in the description, go to the VLine website and check out the products they have available and the vehicles that they're compatible with and all that kind of thing. In fact, I will link down in the description tools, any additional information that's going to be useful to you. I try to do that with all of my videos, including related videos that could be helpful. Now, you may have seen throughout the video that I might have referenced a backup camera here and there. Initially, when I went to install the system, I was going to install an upgraded backup camera in this van. I could not get that to work to save my life, so I ditched the backup camera, took it out of the car, and then just left the factory system in place. I suspect that after doing this most recent update, that if I was using a backup camera, it would probably work properly now. But that's something I can't confirm because I'm not going to tear apart this whole van again to try and verify that. That said, if you are looking to upgrade your backup camera or something like that, you may also be able to do that. And I believe you can also add an additional camera. I'm not really sure what's available at VLine now. Again, check the link in the description. Go see what they have available and see if what they have works for you. But if you have an Odyssey, a 2012-ish or this generation of Odyssey with the navigation system and the screen already in there and you want to update it to CarPlay, this is what I recommend you go with. As I mentioned, that will be linked down in the description along with tools and any additional information that I think is useful to you. So please check the description for additional information. And one more thing before I go. If you're not trying to update your vehicle's navigation system to incorporate CarPlay and all that, and you have other automotive questions, I ask that you head to Ericthecarguy.com. That'll be linked down in the description for you to make it easier for you to find. And if you're following the theme here, you'll see the description has a ton of extra stuff, so please check there. Thank you so much for watching today. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty. I'll see you next time.